Hey, guys, welcome back to Out of Left Field. Graham and Chris here with you. Chris over in London. I'm still in Florida. Battle, I know you are ready to come home, aren't you, man?
I am. I'm tired, and I am ready to get back to sunny Arizona. It's nice in London, temperature-wise, but it's a little humid, and it's kind of dreary.
Yeah, I really don't want to hear about humidity. I live in Florida. It's an 105, 110-degree heat index, so you can just take that and go drink a spot of tea.
Actually, tea doesn't sound bad right now. I have to go for it.
So let's jump into it. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let's bring ourselves into what I think is on everybody's mind right now, and that is what is going to happen to the New York Mets?
Yeah, it has been one of the worst weeks I think we've seen a team have in recent history. Matt Harvey goes down with an apparent shoulder injury we now know to be thoracic outlet syndrome, and last night he elected to have season-ending surgery. It will take about 4 months to recover, and then he said that yesterday afternoon, and then last night during the game against the Nationals, which was supposed to be really one of the best pitching matchups of the season between Thor and Strasburg, Syndergaard comes out with arm fatigue, and then Yoenis Cespedes goes down with an apparent right quadriceps strain. So, excuse me, let's get into Harvey first. Well, you and I were talking about this, and you told me that you really think that this nixes the chance of the Mets making the postseason. Are you still standing behind that, or after a little bit of time, do you think that there's still a possibility for them?
No, I think they're done. Here's the problem. Harvey goes down in against the Marlins. He went out for a start in 3 2/3. They got him for 11 hits and 6 runs. And after the game, when he came in to the training room and he told the trainer, he said, "My shoulder's dead, my arm is dead. There's no energy there. I couldn't feel the ball." These are frightening things to hear a pitcher say. Now we know what's really going on. He has this thoracic outlet syndrome. Going to have surgery to take care of it. And if it was just Harvey, maybe. Syndergaard, if he was strong and healthy, could maybe carry this team into the postseason. But Syndergaard goes down, and then Cespedes goes down in the same game, and it's just not looking bright for the Mets right now.
But Syndergaard, for the most part, is still healthy. He's dealing with the bone spur in the back of the elbow. He's getting some anti-inflammatory injections, which, it should be something that I would think surgically they'll probably remove in the offseason. I don't think it's really gonna stop him from being able to be effective down the stretch. I think it's just one of those games where they said his arm was dead. It was Terry Collins said there wasn't any. They were quick to say it wasn't anything huge or egregious. His arm just was tired. He just he couldn't. It tired quicker than normal, and he didn't have his stuff. Cespedes, the bigger thing, the tougher thing for him, because he is so big, is how quickly will a strain heal. They didn't give a degree or a grade of the strain, but how quickly does it heal, which, and how quickly can he start getting back to running, and doing things that he, normally is doing on a day-to-day basis in that outfield. Now back to Harvey. This is the one when I told you, your reaction, and I know not having seen it, was really, I think, the reaction of most when they first saw this. What thoracic outlet syndrome is, and this is according to a physical therapist I'm seeing for a ligament in my shoulder, basically something is compressing up in that right shoulder area, which is putting pressure on the nerves and blood vessels, and it's compressing the blood flow to the area. Very similar to what it's like to have your arm go to sleep or your foot go to sleep, something like that. only it's happening on a more consistent basis. It could be something like the collarbones compressing it. It's obviously a nerve issue because he said that he had no feeling in the hand. He couldn't feel the ball in his hand. So it takes the idea of it being a blood vessel problem, and we can say, I think, pretty definitively that something is compressing the nerves. Now, at first, me being ignorant, I didn't quite, I thought it was kind of like, TV cables, just a bunch of nerve coming down. The way it is coming off of the spine, the nerves branch out at different points, affecting different parts. So it could be one finger, two fingers that are compressed. In this case, he said his whole hand was numb. I had never thought about this, and what my physical therapist said is that you're normally seeing people who are hunched over at a computer all day. You kind of have your shoulders hunched forward. It puts pressure on it, and over time, it causes you discomfort. And you can probably 90% of the time fix it with just regular therapy. The problem is when you're a major league pitcher who needs to make sure that they can feel that baseball perfectly in their hand, you usually have to go towards surgery, which is what we saw Phil Hughes do. Phil Hughes had part of his rib removed, and we're going to see what happens with Matt Harvey. And we don't know what is causing the compression, but a doctor in St. Louis who is, I guess, look kind of good as the premier doc. He's kind of the James Andrews of this. Is supposed to be doing the surgery. Something I hadn't thought of is that, and it was mentioned to me, is that this could have come because he might have changed his delivery after he had Tommy John surgery. So something could have happened where he just tweaked the way he throws the ball just enough, or now it's starting to cause compression in that shoulder and causing those nerves to go dead on him.
Right, and I think that when you're talking about one of these career-ending surgeries that he's going to have, now it's not a major surgery, obviously we know that.
Season ending, right? Not you mean career ending or season ending?
No, season ending. Excuse me, you're right. Season ending.
Just,
when you're talking about
season
ending
surgery, worse than I thought it was going to be.
When you're talking about season-ending surgery, and you add that just to the list of things that have gone wrong with Matt Harvey this year. First, he was getting hit all over the place. He was being inconsistent. He was struggling to start. Then when he finally seemed like he was settling into a groove, he had a couple of really great outings. And, then this nerve issue that he's having in his shoulder, I think that this has just been a really rough year for him. But here's my issue with Syndergaard. Now, Syndergaard, which I can agree to a certain extent that maybe he's just tired. Maybe it's just, the first half of the season is over now. He was a little tired. But Syndergaard came out in that game, and his opening pitch was a 99-mile-an-hour fastball. And then by the fifth inning, he's throwing 91. And I realized that maybe he's tired, but his excuse sounds a little dull to me, that it's his first season in the big leagues, that he's thrown a lot of pitches and a lot of innings. He said it just boils down to a little bit of fatigue. I get it, but a little bit of fatigue is not losing 8 or 9 miles per hour on your fastball in 4.5 innings. That's a frightening drop in velocity in a single game, and really not something we would expect from him until he went deep into a game 7 or 8 to see that sort of drop in velocity. And even then, to go from 99 to 91 is not good.
So, I disagree with you there. I really disagree with you on that one. See, my thing, we see guys like Verlander back in his prime. Syndergaard still can. When he gets deeper into innings, sometimes that velocity ramps up. But if you're playing in an area where it's still been very hot on the East Coast, humidity is high, we know he's been having the elbow issues anyway. I don't think that him having one game where his arm is just telling him, hey, today is not that day, because he throws so hard and his velocity is so incredibly high, why wouldn't a drop 7-8 miles an hour be a to me it seems very logical that if your arm is sore, you're not feeling your command, you don't have your stuff, he's going to lose velocity.
Right, but here's my problem. He says his arm is sore, but his arm is tired, and it's not related to this bone spur issue, but he threw 200 innings last year. Between the minors and the majors, he threw 198 and two-thirds. He's only at 105 innings this year, which is still almost 30 innings less than he threw in the minors in 2014, and he's never experienced a loss of velocity like this. This is reportedly a quote uncharacteristic slowness for him. So he can say that it's just arm fatigue and he's just tired, but he hasn't thrown enough innings to be that tired. And I'm telling you, I think that this is related to what's going on in the rest of his arm.
I won't disagree that it probably has something to do with the bone spur. And again, he could also have potentially changed a little bit of how he's throwing to try and kind of accommodate the discomfort. He said he's had multiple MRIs. They've always come back negative. The ligaments in the elbow are completely intact. There's no concern there. I want to transition real quick because I don't think we're going to see this as a consistent issue with him. I think he and DeGrom can still hold it down. What got me is that when you told me that you thought that the Mets were done, if Cespedes doesn't come back or is out for – actually, even if Cespedes is out for a decent amount of time, I still am not ready to say that their season's done. Matt Harvey has been 4-10 this year. So is it really a big loss to their rotation that he's not there? Bartolo Colon is playing like an all-star and now is an all-star, which we'll get into in the latter part of the show. He's had the highest ERA of the starting staff. His last win came May 30th. You know, he had a dismal performance against the Marlins. Here was what really bothered me about this issue with Matt Harvey. What's happening physically with him happens to people. It's fine. But he said it's been bothering him the entire season, and the Mets didn't know about it until this week. He told nobody about any discomfort, any odd feelings, lack of control, lack of feeling. He told nobody. So you're taking someone here who's supposed to be one of your franchise pitchers, and now you can't trust him to inform your training staff, hey, something's feeling kind of weird. Can we figure out what it is and try and make sure I can stay healthy? So he allowed himself to pitch halfway into the season with that much discomfort and lack of control. And everyone was, we were saying it when the show began of how poor he was pitching and that he was injured. Well, apparently we were right. It was a shoulder problem. And I think that we had discussed that. We thought it was more of a shoulder issue than because his delivery looked very lackadaisical. Now it's coming out to this. So we're seeing it. Everyone's seeing it. The Mets don't want us to, look in or try and decipher what's going on or make something out of nothing. Yet something was there, and he failed to tell the organization, hey, something is going on. We need to be on the lookout for this. He's putting himself and that organization in a very dangerous spot, which at his age of, I believe, is 27, he should not be doing. I get he doesn't want to go back on the DL or have a surgery again after having Tommy John, but when you're pitching that poorly and you know that you aren't feeling the baseball in your hands, how do you not come out to your organization and say, hey, something's wrong here? There are moments when I'm on that bump, I can't feel the baseball.
Right, and I think you'll find that if you go back and you listen to our first show, I said very clearly that I think that he came back too hard after Tommy John surgery, and he's going to have to – he probably had to change the way he threw a little bit, and I think that is exactly what led to this discomfort is just a slight change in delivery, and sometimes as you and I both know, just a slight change in how you do something when you're used to doing it, when your muscle memory in another way, just a slight change can be the difference between a repetitive motion injury and healthy. And
without a doubt,
I think here's my problem with the idea of the Mets season being in jeopardy. Do I think that the Mets aren't going to make the playoffs? No, I didn't say that. I said they're not going to contend for a World Series. They don't have it left in them, I don't think. If Cespedes spends even 15 days on the DL out for this quad strain, I mean, that's going to put the brunt of that power on the rest of the lineup. And it's going to be difficult for them to make up for that loss of production in their lineup. And then when you add to that the fact that they now have one ace out for the season, they have one ace who's probably going on the DL. In my opinion, I think he'll probably end up missing a start at least. If this continues to happen throughout the season, now you can look at it right now and say they lost Syndergaard for a game, he'll be fine. But if this is something that does continue to happen throughout the season, where he loses velocity like that and just gets, tired, I guess, in the fifth inning of a game because of whether he wants to admit because of it's because of this bone spur or not, it's going to affect the outcome of this season. Now they might make it to the divisional series or the wild card, but I don't think that they contend for a title in a very strong National League climate.
I have no argument there. I agree with you. I think you got to have Cespedes. If you lose Cespedes and you lose Syndergaard and Harvey's gone, you cannot make enough trades to bolster that offense, or that rotation with enough time to contend deep into the playoffs. I don't think there's any argument there. If there has to be one positive out of what happened with Syndergaard and when it happened, so it's happening as we approach the All-Star break. It's All-Star weekend. We finish up the season, or the first half of the season this weekend, and there was a very big push to have Noah Syndergaard start the All-Star game. And I think at this point we can say really without any argument that is not going to happen. Really don't see it, him starting. The All-Star Game starters were announced on Tuesday. The final vote getters for the last spot were announced yesterday. It was Michael Saunders from Toronto and your boy Brandon Belt from San Francisco. Get the smug look off of your face that a Giant got the last spot. I really don't want to hear it. Although I can say I fan voted. I voted for him because I thought that he had the best.
Second best in the National League.
Yep, I thought he had the best statistics out of the final five. Although I still think Trevor Story should have gotten a shot at the All-Star game, but because the game counts, which we'll get into this week or next week, I cast a vote for who I thought was going to be, the best piece in there. So let's go through the All-Star starter selections, and then we can kind of look at, what we think. Do we agree, disagree? I know there's a glaring one here that I will mention, about 6 players that you disagree with. So starting the American League, DH, no surprise, was Big Papi. There's really no other well-known. I mean, he's the biggest name DH probably ever. Edgar Martinez for the Mariners, I would say, is a close second, and he should. I know you hate the idea of the DH, but Edgar Martinez, for what he did for the Mariners, as long as he did, should be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. Sal Perez led the AL in votes. He starts as catcher. Eric Hosmer.
Wait. What about the time that Jose Canseco spent in the DH slot. Does that not deserve some sort of recognition of any kind? I'm definitely joking. Go ahead.
I recognize it. I recognize that a baseball bounced off of his steroid-infused dome, went over the fence for a home run. That is our recognition of his time as a DH. As we move on, Eric Hosmer at first. Jose Altuve starts at second. Xander Bogaerts from the Red Sox starts at short. Manny Machado edges out Josh Donaldson. Well, I'm not sure edges is the right word when we get into the Ben Zobrist and wow, I'm drawing a blank here. This is embarrassing. The Ben Zobrist and Daniel Murphy vote in the National League. So Machado at third, the outfield, Mike Trout, Jackie Bradley Jr., Mookie Betts. Chris Sale started yesterday. I don't think that there's much of a question that he should get the start for the American League. I said a couple of weeks ago that I thought that Corey Kluber would, and I completely just blanked out the fact that Chris Sale's in the National League, which kind of bad on my part. We finished the show, and I went, oops. Chris Sale should start. If he's available, without a doubt, he is the best pitcher. If he doesn't start, I really would like to see Stephen Wright take it from the Red Sox. Knuckleballer, been pitching very well. For much as they're paying David Wright, David Price, Stephen Wright is the ace of that team so far. The way that he's been pitching has been lights out. I really think it'd be good to see a knuckleballer starting again. We haven't had one since R.A. Dickey, and I think it'd be a worthwhile start. Cole Hamels, I could see it happening. The funny thing to me, when ESPN was going over their starter show, they actually put Craig Kimbrell, Zach Britton, and Andrew Miller as prospective starters, and they're relievers. So as we kind of get into what our thoughts are with each starter, what you got, B?
I am, I'm not unhappy with the way the voting went overall. I think that there are some definite snubs, and I think that, of course, I'm going to say Manny Machado should not be starting at third base.
Okay.
Even if you take out the fact that Josh Donaldson is a great third baseman, just Manny Machado's attitude does not fit all-star personnel, in my opinion. I think that should be taken into account. Manny Machado's got an attitude problem. I think it's easy to see. He rushes the mound more than anybody I've ever seen play the game, and he starts fights. He jaw jacks. He's a me player, and he acts that way. And I don't see that as all-star quality. Josh Donaldson's a team guy. He's been having a great run the last couple of weeks. Just the last 7 has been, the last 7 or 10 games have been great for him. He's been hitting the ball. He's been scoring runs. He's been, putting people across the plate. But Manny Machado's a big name, and that's one of the problems that I have with the voting is, fans vote and they say, hey, these are the guys we want because these are the guys whose names we know. I don't think that in a lot of cases a lot more goes into it than that. But beyond that, I don't have a whole lot of problem with the American League. I think you're right. I think that that David Ortiz is probably was a shoo-in at that position. Mike Trout, how can you argue with Mike Trout? Mike Trout's one of the best young players in the game. Jackie Bradley Jr., just based on what he was doing early in the season, we talked about that in an earlier show also. And Mookie Betts is, Mookie Betts is a great ball player.
He's definitely coming into his own. I think we've seen that's been the big thing is we heard a lot about Bradley a couple of years ago, and he struggled. We saw him struggle. This has kind of been his breakout year. I think you're really seeing that next generation of Red Sox players starting to kind of come into their own as guys like Pedroia and Ortiz age and get ready to slowly depart from the team. And I think it's big for the Red Sox to have guys like Betts and Bradley playing with those veterans who understand the Red Sox tradition. They understand how much history goes into, that ball club. They were there when the World Series curse was broken, so they've felt the good and the bad. I think it really bodes well for them as we start to transition the veterans out and bring the new class in.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, the American League doesn't offer me a whole lot of opportunity to disagree with how the voting went. I completely agree that Chris Sale should get the start. Though Corey Kluber is obviously a good number 2. Should something go wrong with Chris Sale, which I don't foresee. I don't think he throws Sunday. So
Kluber actually didn't make the All-Star team.
No, he did.
He did. Is he getting him as a replacement?
He is a replacement. Yeah.
And who is he? I didn't see that. Who's he replacing? I had a game last night. I was working, so I didn't see. Who's he replacing?
I didn't see who he replaced. Let me see if I can find
while
it.
you're looking, which I appreciate. There was no other option than David Ortiz. He is, since the last year, he's the most prolific hitter as a DH, one of the most prolific hitters, I think, in the game. I know you hate the word clutch. We have seen him come up in so many situations and done his job, as guys would say, in clutch situations. I don't think there's any problem there. I don't know how you can argue with Salvador Perez. He is the top catcher in the American League, one of the best in the bigs. Matt Wieters for the Baltimore Orioles has played well this year, and he does come in as a reserve. He's played fewer games. He's been in and out of the lineup. Wieters could have gotten the start, but I don't think there's a question that Sal really is kind of becoming the, another face of that game. And it's someone who's involved every play.
Kluber's going to come in for Marco Estrada, who's been placed on the DL. So
okay. And that could be that could be big for the Blue Jays too.
Yeah, down the road definitely. It's funny, pitchers are dropping like flies this season.
They really are. I mean, and we've said it's been a year of. It's just been a strange year for the game. It's ironic we start the show and then all of a sudden it's just kind of been a really strange way to go with things. It definitely keeps opening up certain parts of each league. I still think that our final 2 or 3 teams are going to be the same. With first base, I don't have a problem with Hosmer starting. He's that young kid, fiery kid. He's aggressive. He loves to play. Plays with a smile most of the time. Guy. We've seen in the World Series. Miggy Cabrera very easily could have started. I think he's being overlooked as the Tigers begin to slip in the Central, but his numbers are still all-star caliber. I mean, Mickey has really hasn't lost much of a step. He's right behind Hosmer in batting average. We're talking by 3 points.
3 thousandths of a point.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm sorry. 300 to 297. His on base is 20 points higher than Hosmer's. His slugging percentage is about 40 points higher than Hosmer's. So that puts him at about an 892 OPS compared to 835. I mean, I don't know, man. That really is one that could have gone either way. They've played roughly the same number of games. They're 330 at bats to 327 at bats. Mickey has 5 more homers. He's got 4 more RBIs. It really easily could have seen Miguel Cabrera be the first base starter, and there shouldn't have been an argument. The problem is guys would have probably had an issue with it, but I don't think that there's really any reason to.
Well, I don't see how they could defend having an issue with it, to be honest with you. Miguel Cabrera is clearly the better defensive first baseman. And when you're talking about a guy who's hitting 297 to a guy who's hitting 300, that's a wash. Offensively, they're a wash. Defensively, Cabrera is clearly the better first baseman.
Yeah, I don't think I don't have a problem there at all. I'm with you. Miguel Cabrera's got a 996 fielding percentage, 3 errors. Hosmer has 5 errors, a 993 fielding percentage. He's 10th out of the top first baseman in the American League. So nothing huge there. And part of that comes when we saw the Royals kind of take that slow dive early in the season, and they're kind of finding themselves again. Chris Davis could have been. He misses the All-Star team. His numbers haven't been fantastic, but along with Mark Trumbo, they've been just hitting lights out. Altuve, pretty clear to see why he was going to be in there. Really has been one of the best second basemen by numbers. He leads an average OPS, slugging, wins above replacement, deadly speed. He's got 13 more steals than the next closest second baseman. Ian Kinsler wouldn't have been horrible, and really, when Kinsler left Texas, there's a big question of, why was he leaving? Was anything really going to happen? Was he on the backside of his career? And Kinsler has really found his niche in Detroit. So I wouldn't have minded seeing him. He actually was my vote for the American League player for the final spot. Went to Michael Saunders, but I think he definitely was all-star worthy. Shortstop, you can't question Bogarts. If Carlos Correa had been healthy the whole year, we would have seen a race. But with Correa out, Bogarts is going to absolutely run away with it. I know you don't like the idea of Machado being in there. Not a whole lot of people look at the game the way that you do as far as taking more than just play on the field, which I don't think is a problem the way you look at that. I think it's a way that the game should still be seen, because that's really the way the game was based when it was, the inception was for it to be, to a point, kind of a gentleman. Game. Exactly. But you could have picked up a quarter, flipped it, and had your tails taken Donaldson or Machado. I really had no issue there. Machado's numbers are clearly all-star worthy. I get your concern about, personal issues, but between the lines, people want to see what he can do. And I think, either way, it's going to be a deadly combination the first half of that game, putting those two on the hot corner. Outfield, Mike Trout, I don't think there's an argument, is the most exciting outfielder in the game today.
Well,
he's robbing home runs.
Let's look at something. I read an interesting statistic about Mike Trout. Mike Trout is 154 hits away from the 1,000 hit club, and he's 24 years old.
Oh, wow!
Yeah, he has 846 hits, and he's 24. This is a guy who's going to play another 10 years. At this point, the guy is on pace to definitely enter the 3,000 hit club, and maybe even get into I won't say Pete Rose territory at this point, but still, the guy's definitely slugging.
For sure. Well, let me ask you this. I don't know if you had a chance to look as we get into the outfield. I got no problem with Bradley starting, but I think Ian Desmond from Texas could have easily started over Mookie Betts. Texas is, without a doubt, the best team in the American League. I think even the way that the Indians have been playing, and they've been on a huge tear, they went from, they've also got smacked pretty hard a couple games, I think two in a 4-game stretch they lost, I think, by double digits. I'm surprised, Desmond comes in as the only Rangers player, aside from Cole Hamels. I would not have had a problem if he had started over Mookie Betts. I think we've seen more flashes of leather from the Red Sox outfield, and he and Bradley as a combination have looked better. But Desmond has really had a fantastic season. Again, it's more of a coin flip. As we transition into the – I'm sorry, go ahead, Ben.
There are a few of those kind of coin flip players, not only on the American League but also in the National League. And one is one we just discussed right before we started the show, and that's Buster Posey. Obviously, you're never going to get me to admit that Buster Posey shouldn't start this game. He's tied for being the best defensive catcher in the league. He's the fourth best hitting catcher in the league, and I think that he deserves this start. Now, you can make the argument that he's getting this start because he has the name power, but he has the game to back it up too. But I will say that either of the two reserves for the National Leagues, but especially Ramos, is where you get your coin flip, I think.
I agree with you. I think that the biggest argument, if we look just on the hitting side of things, Ramos is 90 points higher on OPS and about 40 points higher on average. Now, granted, he's played in fewer games, about 40 fewer games than Buster has. So the question then really becomes, do you look at Buster's struggles in the beginning and where he's at now? Because if that's the case and we're looking at batting struggles, then we could have said that Freddie Freeman, could have been a viable starter at first base over Anthony Rizzo or your boy Brandon Belt. And we know how tough it was for Freeman at the beginning of the season until we came into the beginning of June when we talked to Chip Carey last week. Again, guys, if you want to take a look at any of our old shows, give us a listen. You can always find us on Twitter. We are at OOLeftField. You can email us at ooleftfield@gmail.com, and we are now also on Facebook. Just search Out of Left Field. You'll find our page. Every link to every show that we have done is on there from start to finish. So from 1 until I believe we're on show 7 now, so you'll find 1 through 6, and then we'll put 7 up in the next either tonight or tomorrow when it comes out. So give us a listen. Feel free to like our page. Again, we want to have an interaction with you, things that you guys think, things you disagree with on us, any topics that you want to see. Ask us. We'd love to interact with you.
Now, on the issue of Brandon Belt, Brandon Belt is number 2 hitting first baseman in the National League. I mean, you can't take it away from the guy. He's got a hot bat. He's had a hot bat now for a couple of years. But he's not the best defensive first baseman. And, I say that, and what I mean by that is he's not even in the top 10. He's not even in the top 20 best defensive first basemen in the National League. He's actually ranked number 22 as far as defense goes, fielding percentage. But does that earn him a spot? Does his bat earn him a spot? I mean, I could make an argument that no, just having a hot bat doesn't earn you a spot on the All-Star roster. But then where do we go with guys like Goldschmidt? Does just being a great defensive first baseman earn you a spot on the roster? Because he's not hitting that great this year. Now, last year there was no question that Paul Goldschmidt starts that All-Star game. The guy was hitting like .416 or something like that at the time. But right now, Paul Goldschmidt is the third best defensive first baseman in the league, and that's a position that he is in perennially. I mean, he's a great first baseman. But he's hitting behind Brandon Belt. Now, not far behind him, but he's hitting behind him. I like the inclusion of Myers from the Padres. I think he's a great first baseman. And I think that he's come a long way into earning that sort of distinction. But the National League is where I'm not happy with some choices.
Okay.
First of all, let's talk about the Cubs. The Cubs are starting their entire four-man infield. Rizzo,
Right.
Bryant, and Russell. That's the first time that's happened since 1963, and the St. Louis Cardinals did it. And you and I have both expressed some discomfort at that idea. Ben Zobrist, that race for the second base All-Star pick.
88 votes. 88 votes he beat out Daniel Murphy by. And I think, honestly, the Nationals fans failed here.
I do too. And I bet there's
batting.
88 guys who go to Nationals games on a regular basis and go, oh, man, I forgot to vote.
I mean, he's batting 50 points higher. He's slugging 110 points higher. It's one of those moments where, to be honest with you, I mean, I think it came down to the fact of the Cubs have this insane record, and let's just see, really, I think when it came down to is, well, why wouldn't we? And we've said that I think that when it comes down to it, the Cubs and probably the Giants have two of the best middle infields between second and shortstop in the game. And I haven't had really any issue there. You definitely see a better fielding percentage out of Ben Zobrist. He's only made 2 errors. Murphy has made 6 this year. When it comes to as far as range left and right, it's about the same. But man, I'm with you, man. I mean, I think that.
And that argument that the Cubs have this great record in typical baseball fashion just doesn't hold up when the All-Star game finally gets here. That sounds like an argument that was made a month ago, and it doesn't play out in the current climate of the National League. The Nationals and the Cubs have basically the same record. The Giants are the best team in baseball. They have 3 more wins than the Cubbies.
Well, yeah, but we're not talking about wins and losses. We're talking about players, particular players. And what my point is that I think that when you're looking at Russell and Zobrist or Brandon Crawford and Joe Panik, I still think that those are probably 2 of the best middle infields in the game. Regardless of what we have going, as far as records, who has what. I don't know. To me, I still don't have that much of an issue, saying that. I still think it's pretty clear that, that Zobrist and Russell are probably the best when it comes to a group. But in an all-star game, I don't know if Zobrist was the fair choice. I've got no problem with Rizzo. It could have gone a lot of different ways. I mean, we know the Cubs came out in droves. Freddie Freeman came out, red hot. Started off slow and has really picked up and is back to really his average career numbers. We said that Brandon Belt has been playing well. He's actually been playing really above his career numbers. So I think that he was a very fair choice as the final in. But what really got me was the addition of Addison Russell. I really disagree with Russell being the shortstop. I just don't get it, honestly. I think Corey Seager barely eats in as a reserve, but has arguably been one of the best shortstops in the bigs. He's been a huge piece for the Dodgers, this year. From what I've seen, they're going to let Seager play in the participate in the home run derby. We'll see how well that goes for him. I don't know, man.
Here's the problem, though. None of those choices, though, are, in my opinion, and of course you're going to call me a homer. You're going to, all these things you always call me. But the fact is that none of those choices, in my opinion, beat out Brandon Belt of the San Francisco Giants.
Belt. We're talking about Belt. We're talking about middle infield. Belt's your first baseman. So you're talking about Crawford?
I'm sorry, Crawford. Yeah, none of them beat out Crawford as a better choice for shortstop. They don't hit better. They don't field better. I mean, in my opinion, on the list of real snubs for the All-Star game, Brandon Belt is at the top of that list. And I can make an argument for that if you want me to.
Crawford battle.
I'm sorry,
I know
Crawford.
You're tired, but Brandon Crawford, your shortstop. How can you be a homer and be getting your star shortstop's name wrong?
Well, it's been a long 5 weeks.
No, I'm with you. I see it. I was really surprised. A hard thing is really shortstop was probably one of the better positions in the National League this year, and of all people, they put in Addison Russell, and I just don't get it. You have this rookie out of St. Louis. I'm getting some back feed, B. Okay, I got you. You have Aledmus Diaz has been really doing well. I think Trevor Story. Trevor Story could have, for lack of a better pun, he has been probably the biggest story in the National League. He was red hot coming out of the gate, 10 home runs in April. Problem is, because the game counts, you're going to put you put the best players in to help you win, and I think Story, he was on that list of final player to get in, and obviously didn't make it. It really could have gone a myriad of ways. At third, Matt Carpenter was the reserve. He's now hurt. He's out. He'll be taking a shot to the DL, so we'll see a replacement coming in for him. But the thing is that, Chris Bryant is really now synonymous with the Cubs organization. His power numbers are among the best in the league. I really don't think that coming into the 16th season that there was a doubt that he was going to be the favorite to start the All-Star game at third base.
Yeah, no, I agree. And third base is not again not where I draw my issue with the voting, and that goes into how I feel about how the All-Star game works, which we're going to get into later if we have time. But I got no real problem with third base. Giannis Cespedes obviously isn't going to play.
Yeah. And we have him, Bryce Harper, and Dexter Fowler as our three prospective starters for the outfield. Like you said, Cespedes is going to be a no-go, and Fowler, that's kind of the interesting story. Even though Bryce Harper's bat has fallen off, Fowler is the one that I'm kind of curious about.
Well, the Cubbies are obviously hugely represented in this All-Star game, and I don't have a problem with that. It happens every year. Some club comes out and they have a great start, and their fans get really excited, and they go out and vote and vote and vote and vote, and that's what happened, I think, for the Cubbies this year, and it's what happened for the Red Sox this year. They're both heavily represented in the All-Star game. I think that in terms of people who should actually starting in this game or even included in this game, I think there's some mistakes made there. But one thing I don't think you can say is that the top 4 starting pitchers for the National League team don't deserve to be there. We're talking about Jake Arrieta, Madison Bumgarner, Bartolo Colon, and Johnny Cueto. Bartolo Colon is coming in. Madison Bumgarner is not going to pitch in this game. Madison Bumgarner throws tomorrow night, and he's not going to throw again on 2 days rest for an All-Star game, even if it counts. And Johnny Cueto's having a great season, but Jake Arrieta is just one of those guys. Him and John Lester both are just having one of those seasons where you can't argue with the idea that Jake Arrieta is probably going to get the start in this game.
No, even though he started last night, and he struggled the last couple of games. I think he's dropped his last 2 starts. So, let me backtrack 1 second, because this is one thing that really kind of surprised me, and you're out there with this division. I think it was a big snub that Carlos Gonzalez is coming in as a reserve and not a starter from the Rockies. Without a doubt, has been probably one of, if not the best outfielder in the National League, especially power-wise. Ryan. Let me read you this line on Ryan Braun. In 274 at-bats, Braun has 16 doubles, 13 homers, 44 driven in. He is batting .318 with an .899 OPS and has been left off the roster, which I think, to me, I think it's awfully telling that he's having a good season. Continues to be in trade talks, but yet no selection. He was part of the final vote for last player. I think you could have argued that Christian Yelich from the Marlins could have been a good reserve player, not a starter, but Cargo should have gotten a start. I get Bryce Harper is one of the biggest names in East Coast baseball, but Bryce Harper has not been playing as well as he started the season out the last month and a half.
Well, he hasn't been playing the kind of baseball that made him that name either. And that's not just this season. It's been a little bit of back and forth for the last couple of years.
And I think, and I know they haven't come out with this yet, but the way that the All-Star game rules go, if an elected starter is going to be unable to play, the reserve who received the most votes on the player ballot at that particular position moves into the lineup. The roster replacement is then chosen by the league manager, which would be Joe Madden. So it would not surprise me if Carlos Gonzalez goes ahead and gets that starting spot because of Cespedes being out. But you mentioned, pitchers that Madison Bumgarner, guys that are going to be starting. The big thing is the Sunday starter rule, which also looks like it's going to impact the rosters, mainly with Bumgarner. Those who pitched on the final day before the All-Star break can be replaced, though they do have the option of choosing to remain available for 1 inning or a predetermined number of pitches. So he can still pitch if he wants to come in. If they want to bring him in, let the fans see him for a little bit, they can. But to me, there's a big difference in pitching on Sunday and coming in for an inning on 2 days rest in the All-Star game, and coming in on 2 days rest and going 4.5 innings in Game 7 of the World Series. we're not getting into that. But I mean, obviously, as you said, it's one of the most well-known performances of all time. I know he loves to pitch, but it would not surprise me if Bochy and Madden have a little chit chat and say, "Hey, just don't. If you want to let him hit, let him hit.
Right.
But let's not." And before we move on, 2 names I want you to think. And we talked about kind of the odd season that baseball has been. 2 names that are not on the reserve roster, at least when it first came out. Andrew McCutchen, Giancarlo Stanton. Considered one of the best center fielders and was supposed to be one of the best hitters in the game. And over the last couple of games, he had two homer nights back-to-back, which I hope really is going to be that turning point for him where things begin to click. But, I mean, imagine having Stanton who, is breaking scoreboards and destroying the ball when he was hitting, the way that he could. And Andrew McCutchen, who is the face of the Pittsburgh Pirates, was one of the most dynamic outfielders, and neither one makes the All-Star team.
Yeah, and both perennial All-Stars at one point.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Wouldn't have seen it coming when the seasons began. No way.
No, definitely not. Especially not after the performances that McCutchen's put in over the last 5 or 6 years. I mean, the guy's just he's good. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I think that when you get into a situation, though, especially with McCutchen, where, not to take anything away from anybody else who's on the Pirates, but when a guy like McCutchen is the face of your organization and is the sort of the guy, the go-to guy, the cleanup guy, and you got really nothing around him to help him out, this is where you end up. You end up with a guy who isn't hitting badly for who he is, but he's hitting badly in the context of the overall
scope of the outfield.
Right.
And actually, he's hitting this year. He's hitting 50 points below his standard average. He's batting .244 right now. He's a .294 career hitter. His on base percentage is almost 70 points lower. So yeah, it really has been one of those weird, like I said, weird seasons that I think what we're going to see, what could be the moment they need him really to step up is with Matt Carpenter out for the Cardinals and the possibility of Cespedes being out for a while due to his injury and Syndergaard, we don't know what's going to happen there. That really, as we said last week, could open up that wild card run. And they're going to need McCutchen and those guys to really step up if they want to have a chance to make a run while they're getting through it.
Yeah. We were going to talk about All-Star rules. I think that's probably something that we should hold off on until we have a little bit more time, because I know that there's a lot of things that you and I want to get into, and we have a lot to say about that.
And I know you also want to bring up the idea, and it's been tossed around, of doing a home run derby just for pitchers. So, with it being All-Star Week, we're not going to have a bunch of baseball next week. Probably by the time that we get to the show, I believe that's going to be they're going to maybe have one game down in the next week. So, it gives us something to talk about. We'll have a chance to kind of recap the All-Star game, talk about what we saw, and what we think really could make the All-Star game more palatable for fans long term, and what things should be changed, or as kind of the tease, what things should be reverted back to the way they used to be.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, along with any discussion of the All-Star game and what may or may not change, and the completely out of left field idea of having a pitcher's home run derby, we'll be back with many other stories straight out of left field.